Okay, so these are the most disappointing films of 2018. That doesn't mean that a film was good or bad. In fact, several of these films I gave positive write-ups to. It's just that, well, these are films that I expected more from. These are films that had a potential that they just, for whatever reason, didn't reach, and I walked out of the screening feeling disappointed and deflated. It's the most personal of the three lists, as there's no real mechanism by which I can say this has disappointed me. And I'm pretty sure that at least one's going to be quite controversial, but these are genuinely the 10 films that I feel just let me down in 2018. As always, the house rules are that a film must have been screened on a cinema screen at least once in the year 2018. If it was released purely on a streaming service, it is not eligible, but a film released mutually on a streaming service and a limited release has been included. And with that said, here are the 10 most disappointing films of 2018. A gothic children's film about wizards made by a guy who never made anything below an 18 rated film before, starring the insanely talented Cate Blanchett as well as Jack Black. How awesome could this have been? Instead, this was a bland story that's been told many times before with no real surprise or shocks. What a waste. A social satire which involves shrinking Jason Bourne to 5 inches tall and might have ended with him fighting a spider with a knitting needle, but didn't. In fact, nothing much happened, which is a shame as director Alexander Payne has things on his mind. Global warming, mass consumption, white privilege, liberal guilt, irredeemable women, redeemable men, and the gut-busting humour inherent in a Vietnamese refugee speaking in pidgin English. All this is stuffed into Downsizing, a potentially ambitious sci-fi satire which wastes its talented cast on a script in dire need of editing and focus. And it downsizes its takings as well, making a mere $55 million on a budget of $78 million, not including advertising. Okay, so a running theme of this list is going to be just because it made a lot of money doesn't mean I thought it was any good, aka the McDonald's principle. And kicking off this list we have Solo, a Star Wars cash grab which made less money than a film that had former Olympic diver Jason Statham stab a giant shark in the face. As well it should have done, because leaving aside firing directors with 70% of the film in the can, basically reshooting the entire thing with a new director, rumours that the lead actor couldn't act, this is not really a Star Wars film. It's a bog standard heist movie. First heist goes wrong, so now they have to pull off the crazy heist to get the crime lords off their back. Just in Star Wars wrapping. It asks a lot of questions I don't recall anyone asking, wasn't terribly exciting, and may have put yet another nail in the coffin of Star Wars. Sometimes it must really suck to be a Star Wars fan. Now, I could take a hard-R superhero universe in contrast to the omnipresent and overrated 12A worshipping MCU, especially one full of anti-heroes only betting the villains because their body count is slightly lower, but to twist it into a 12A film for some delusion of it being allowed into the MCU, which is liable to happen as Brexit being a good thing, it was an overlong, bog-standard superhero origin film with one dull chase, one dull fight scene against loads of ineffective human enemies, and one fight scene where I'm still not certain that someone didn't turn off my screening's projector. Also, this film might well answer the mystery of how Tom Hardy keeps having to wear stuff on his face given how many silly noises he makes. Deadpool 2 doesn't really do anything wrong, but there's just this sense that this is a good joke being retold, except the second time round, it's not quite as funny or surprising. Also, the narrative didn't seem as tight, the fight scenes weren't as good, it felt a little overstuffed with characters, and the whole production just seemed a little pleased with itself. I get the feeling going forward that Deadpool is better as a support character than the leading man. Based on a book written by a former CIA operative, starring Jennifer Lawrence, no 12A rating to worry about. Yes, please. It's just a shame that it's such a dull, depressingly drab film to watch. It's full of little plot holes, seems more interested in graphically beating up a beautiful young woman than setting up an interesting find-the-mole thriller. It even ends badly, with basically the mole confessing for no other reason than to bring about the end credits. And not before time, I must say. Leaving aside the fact that it basically gave away its entire plot, including the big twist, in its own trailer, this film just feels rushed and uninteresting, turning Lisbeth Salander from an interesting character into a vigilante, as well as reducing all of the complex characters in this world into archetypes. This world doesn't belong on the silver screen, it belongs in a mini-series, so that you can properly do justice to its characters. Also, it means that great actors like Claire Foy have something to get their teeth into beyond look sulky. Yes, Rami Malek gives a great performance, and if he doesn't get an Oscar or at least a nod, then it will be a travesty. But that doesn't mean that Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't have all the usual weaknesses of a biopic. Simplified events, fictional characters, and it completely mistreats Mercury's HIV, as well as a bizarre jab at critics halfway through. It's so full of historical errors, and it just feels so sanitized. A man who threw parties where dwarves had trays of cocaine on their heads should not be the star in a film where I can happily park my mum for 2 hours. Also, the rest of Queen gets so little development, I could swear that 2 of them don't even get names and seemingly produce children out of thin air. What a waste of a unique chance to examine one of the greatest showmen in history. Now, before you get busy in the comments section, hear me out. What is this film? 10 years of development lead up to a bloated film full of tension-free, CGI-infested fight scenes that just got repetitive and left me feeling a little punch drunk. It had a massive third act brawl that was purely there for a massive third act brawl, no development on the villain side, and I'm sure it's got a few continuity errors in it for the rest of the MCU. The missus described it as Van Forstic meets Manchester by the Sea, and she's not far off. I do just want to say that having worked in retail, I fully support Thanos, except I think it was maybe a bit of a lightweight, but reducing the number of characters would have helped. Some more variety in the fight scenes, and for Marvel to have actually done something with this post-Snap era before resetting everything with Avengers 4, Live Free or Avenge Hard. Alright, the original film is simply Del Toro getting to make a Power Rangers movie and makes my inner 8-year-old smile no matter how often I watch it. But this, it had none of the swagger or confidence of the original. Scott Eastwood is no Idris Elba, who is. John Boyega, while solid as always, doesn't come across as a wild child forced into the Jaeger program, which is using child soldiers for some unknown reason. The plot is completely predictable and needed some trimming or rewriting. Even worse, what few fight scenes there are boring and predictable with no moments that stand out. It's not a film that does a lot wrong, but there's just a sense of a misfire happening, of a bonfire not leaping into life, but instead simply smouldering away, disappointing everybody. Soundtrack sucked as well. What a shame. Alright guys, so what did you think and what was your most disappointing film of last year? Comment below, let me know. I'm Daniel, it's been a dunking. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe.